course, a round of applause to Carla and Patrícia. Muito obrigado. Okay, very similar like in the first one. Before I put my two guests on the spot, I would also like to invite you on another thought experiment. And the reason is I saw this picture from a Brazilian brand, also being very engaged in a new business model for fashion. And on a runway show, they put this very provocative "fuck fast fashion," which I found really, really interesting and provoking. Because I think it's true, there is a reason to question fast fashion in particular. And I think there is a reason to put especially this SDG number 17 out, that we have to partner. And now I have here colleagues working from a humanistic side, from a technical side, and in business a lot of partnerships are needed. But there's also a challenge in business partnership, and I would like to do that again, as I said, in a thought experiment with you, because the question is, our old business model some sort of assumes that if we all do for our self-interest, the greater society will, as a side effect, benefit from it. And that might be not all the time true. So my question to you is now, if you think you're thrown in a situation and you can play that through with another person, and imagine the condition is you would have the opportunity to keep the 100 for yourself, do whatever you want, or you could give it to another person you don't know, and then it would be tripled, and the other person had the choice to do whatever they want. So they can split the money, or they can keep the 300. So it's the risk-taking to give somebody money you don't know if you can trust. But you start maybe a snowball effect, and it's your decision. And maybe quick, just hands up, who would be keeping the money? No, I'll ask the other way around. Who would be giving the money to another person, a person you don't know? Who would trust so much in a stranger? Okay, I think it's less than the half of it, which makes total sense. That some people are a little bit skeptical. Can I trust a person I don't know? Because homo economicus, take the money and run. That's the old logic. So let's now go a little bit into our conversation. We can overjump that. And I like to have our whole conversation with regards to innovation and education. And I wanted to ask the first question to you, Carla. From all the examples you saw here, from all the brand examples, what is for you the most interesting, the most sustainable example from a technical point of view? And before you give that answer, maybe evenly interesting for the audience, what is actually your job? What is a bioengineer actually doing? Because otherwise I don't even know what you may be telling me.
Okay, thank you, Thorsten. And it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for the invitation. So first of all, what does a bioengineer do? Since very young, the environment, when I was born, it was after you, not that much, but was after you. And I always had this feeling that all of us can do something by the planet. And for that moment, I understood that we have no planet B, and there's only one option that we can keep growing, as population is growing, is that we also rely on biotechnology to produce our food and to produce our raw materials. And that was the main motivation, so I went to biotechnology, because we can do, using microorganisms, we can grow in a lab what we need, not only for eating, but also as a raw materials. At the moment when I was starting as bioengineering degree, I was most focusing on food industry, and by accident, I would say, because in the north of Portugal, we have a strong textile industry. I realized that in textile, as any industry, but in particular in textile, we rely on organic materials, on fibers, and many of those can be grown or can be changed for more sustainable approaches. Mm-hmm. And in that case, a biotechnology engineer can also help to develop new raw materials for the industry.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I understand what you're doing, and I also think it's really interesting and exciting how you went on the journey. What was your motivation to enter into that space? Now, to my question with regards to the example, which one impressed you the most? Or if you have maybe any other example, you're also an industry expert.
Yeah, and congratulations for your wonderful presentation. For the examples you showed, and one of them for me, it's really inspiring because it relies on the ADN, on really ADN of the owner of the company, which is Patagonia. I think he's the one that is really from the beginning, because as you also mentioned, greenwashing is a black cloud that is surrounding all the business. And we are not sure of all the claims, and even as consumers, it's very difficult for us, even for me that I'm on the market and I'm on textile technology, and I know the materials, I know the brands. Sometimes it's very difficult to trust information that we see in a label. And it's a problem that we don't have enough information for sure, but also because the market share that is on the other direction of your chart is driven, the competitive market is always driven the business, and the sustainability is a strong issue, it's a strong marketing issue, but sometimes it's just that, it's a marketing issue, and it's not always understood as a must. And for me, Patagonia has that from the owner, from the, they really foresee and they really choose and they try to be the most sustainable as possible.
Okay, so what I take away is, even though you're from a very technological point of view, your answer was more on the company in the first place. You did not talk about a specific material or fabric, you talked about the trust you have in this company, because they started this journey in the 70s, long time before any legislation or a bigger public voice was asking them to do it. And so that is for you the outstanding example.
Yes.
Fantastic. Let's keep it for a moment. We maybe can deep dive into some other, but the clear answer is from all the example, I would say in my words, you trust Patagonia the most. Maybe that is a right way of saying it. And maybe before we move over, a quick question is always interesting what the audience thinks. Who trusts Patagonia? Who thinks this is a brand I can trust? It's not. Okay, I see many hands, and that's not a surprise in my opinion. Okay, Patrícia, now I want to come to you. First of all, what is your profession? This is also something I think
this is easy. This is easy. So, hello all. It's wonderful to be part of this, and it's wonderful to be with you here. Yes, I'm a social neuroscientist. What does it mean? It means that I take knowledge and the tools from neuroscience to apply to understand better the citizens' behavior, consumers' behavior, and try to understand how can we help people to make thoughtful decisions. This is my main work and my main goal, obviously with a very important part, that is opening the doors from academia, from universities, to make sure that we partner with the community, with industries, and we try to create literacy around those topics. So it's really applying neuroscience or social neuroscience and the scientific knowledge to the real world. And for me, this is absolutely passionate. I think this is the most important role that a researcher and obviously someone from a specific sector, doesn't matter if it is a higher education or if it is the industry, this is the main social role we can assume.
Now, fantastic, and I have to confess maybe to use psychological jargon words. Here I have a big bias, obviously, to the topic. Because I did my master in behavioral ethics, which is some sort of a side discipline, worried about why do people take good or bad decisions and under which conditions. So now I'm particularly interested from the examples I showed, and maybe nothing applies to your area, or maybe it does, but I'm curious, what was for you the most remarkable example, something you felt like this was really pushing the agenda forward towards more sustainability?
Well, as I mentioned, I work in higher education, and to me, our main mission is to galvanize people to change. More than this, I think it's very important for someone within higher education to understand that this is the place between the childhood or the teenager to the professional and adulthood phase of our lives. And this could be a very interesting and enriching experience if we can really prepare those individuals to make the difference. I think that first of all, it's very important to see some examples of industries working hand to hand with the community. Because this is something we have seen in many surveys in the community. The motivation to learn more about the challenges industries and companies and some sectors have, the difficulty to process all the information we have available, as Carla was telling us, but also the fear that probably they are not sharing the truth. And this is a kind of cold shower when we see that some advertisement, beautiful advertisement, or some beautiful marketing narratives actually doesn't represent what's happening within industries. For me, those examples you shared about some companies really making difference is very important to consolidate the trust that consumers not only have to build with community, but also the trust they want to build with the community. We have seen again and again in many types of surveys for different parts of the community, the intention to learn more, the intention to be more active, the intention to collaborate more. The big question here is how? And this is the question we also have the same doubts. That's how can we more actively participate in this change?
So let me maybe go a little bit deeper on that, and then I have also one from a technical end. So I think what we learned is, yesterday, for example, there was a presentation about a luxury hotel resort. And I think the manager said, it's very clear my customer doesn't expect anything less than luxury. Because they pay a lot of money here, so we take care of everything, so they don't need to be responsible. We are responsible for that. We take the responsibility as a business. And I was wondering, to one degree I agree. On the other hand, I think maybe the hotel in this regard, and now we talk about sporting goods, maybe the brands are not using their power to educate people. So I was wondering if a company talks about organic cotton versus normal cotton and they put a little sticker on it, is this sufficient level of education? Is this creating more collaboration? Or is it actually creating mistrust because it's not clear what it means? So what do you suggest is the right level of education brands should also provide to the population, without using the word to the consumer?
Well, I teach this in my neuroscience classes. That is how the brain learns. And it's not enough to listen to or to read something. It's important to paraphrase. It's important to act, to put in place those knowledge. And the most beautiful examples we have seen in the community are examples when the typical citizen, the local community can work with the companies building something important, meaningful for the community. So obviously I believe in knowledge, in literacy, for sure, but I know this is not the entire story, right? It's very important to consolidate this knowledge, doing impactful things. And this is something we have defended together many, many times, saying that community cannot create walls, and industries cannot create walls as well. We need both sides. They need to build these bridges, to work together at different levels. I know this could be challenging at the beginning to know how to control the entropy related with bringing other stakeholders for within the companies. But without this, the idea of to trust or to build this transparency you were talking about is not possible, because it creates many difficult barriers in this relationship. I believe the communication between community and different sectors in the industries we are talking about is a relationship between
humans,
two people. We need to build, and we need to talk the same language.
So I think what's really interesting what you're saying, I think you bring two aspects in. One is the interaction, let's say, with the human in the sense the person who uses your product and services, but it's also within the industry, the humans, and we're all humans at the end of the day. So, Carla, I wanted to ask you a little bit now on a technical side, because especially in the sporting goods industry, and this is maybe a little bit different than in the fashion industry, maybe in fashion we could say that there should be no compromise as a goal between style and sustainability. Let's say a better sustainable material should not look more ugly in a way. For sports product, it's probably even more important that the performance function is no compromise. If we think of something like a skiing boot, for example, it's also a security aspect, right? I mean, you don't want to mess around with a product which doesn't provide the necessary function. What evolutions do you see, especially in that space, to make sure that sustainable materials and processes can also deliver at this highest level of function?
Yeah,
is there hope? Is there hope
yeah.
to? I'm making the question maybe even more direct. Is there hope to escape from petroleum-based materials and replace them with equally functional products and not petroleum-based?
Not now.
Not now.
Not now, yeah, for sure. And it's a quite interesting question. So sports in particular, we are talking about high-performing textiles. So it's more technical textiles. And there's no doubt that for sports practice, we need synthetic materials. We need polyester. That's not an option, because we cannot have the same properties in terms of moisture management, for instance, when we use cotton or we use even lyocell, that is a more sustainable fiber. So we need polyester, and sometimes sustainability, we cannot address sustainability as a closed box. Sustainability has many pillars. One of them is durability, for sure. And if we are replacing our materials more often, and if we have to choose between one product that lasts a lot of years and that performs well during those years, and one product that we can use 1 or 2 times and then we have to throw away, that is not a sustainable material, even if it has a lower CO2 footprint from the production. So that is also another important aspect. And for polyester, we need fossil-based fibers for technical textiles, for sure, but we can grow polyester in reactors. We can put bacteria to even using residues from other industries as a carbon source, and to grow polyester. We are not still there. There are some already bio-based polyesters in the market. They are not performing still in the same way as fossil and as petroleum-based polyester, but we are getting there, and probably we are not there yet because it's a matter of cost. One of the big issues we are having now is price of garments. You mentioned Shein as they are a remarkable case study because they are penetrating the market enormously. And it's not true that they are not concerned with sustainability. They moved to Europe. They have an office in Europe just to work on sustainability, and they are trying to have a niche. For the moment, it's just a niche, but we know that in a moment they can change their business model once they have penetrated and can change to have more sustainable materials. Of course, if we as consumers, and then I put in the paper in the role of as a consumer, if we as consumers we want to go to a party and we just go to Shein, order a dress by 10 euros and just discard it, that is not a sustainable option. It's a polyester dress, of course, but then we can try to see, I'm not saying that we cannot buy things, that's not the question, but we need to buy and we need to have alternative ways to alternative end of life options. We could buy this dress, but we could put it in Vinted, for instance, or other application, or we could borrow, or we could provide a second life, or we need really to explore repair and reuse models.
Fantastic. So in a way, indirectly or directly talking already about circular economy business models. So maybe Patrícia, and I'm looking at the slide here, because this sentence here from 87, quite a long time ago, right? And we can repeat it today just as a reminder. It was launched in Rio at the time. We know the situations, what that means, the overshoot can be reversed. So there is an utmost belief for 20 years around that we can reduce CO2, we can reduce the overshoot if we correctly use new technology. We talked about technology, knowledge, education, but we have to find a new ethic. what is a new ethic? What is an ethical innovation? And maybe I look at you because I think maybe the ethical innovation I don't find on the technology side. Maybe I find it on the human fields.
Yes, we can be complementary about this. Often new materials and new technologies, they are born within the higher education spaces, right? And obviously this is very important. But you could think, is this enough to invest in technological skills, to be aware about the importance, to be responsible for the impact of those new technologies? I don't think so. And I think the entire higher education sector, and also in partnership with other partners, we have realized that this type of training is important, but it needs to have as well a kind of ethical grounding. And how can we do this, right? It's enough to talk about this. Well, it's not enough, but it's important. It's important to make sure that this ethical commitment is included in our curricula. Since the very early stage of training, I'm talking about the school levels we have here, students, and probably this is something you need to talk about. We need to talk about the importance of being committed with the changes the society needs for the future. This is our commitment as citizens, right? First of all, we need to assume the responsibility to take care of society, of the planet, of the social capital, the human capital in the future. And we have this approach that we will learn this by chance. Well, this doesn't work all the time. It could work for some of us, but it will not work for everyone. And I think that some specific strategies, such as service learning, community projects, taking our future professionals, the young generation, to go within the industries, to understand the process by which the things we love are created. And I will share this very quickly. Working with industries, my greatest takeaway was to respect and trust more on the efforts they have done. And this was not a perspective I had before. Actually, my idea about brainwashing, greenwashing, was very, very higher than it is today. To understand the complexity underlying change is something very important to increase the commitment we have with those stakeholders, to understand the importance of everyone changing. You were talking about the role of brands and industries. I believe we need to keep this other pillar, as Carla was saying, the pillar of the typical citizen, and to understand that this is a common commitment to create this common good for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I would like to summarize just before we go a couple of things. So first of all, maybe the message is there is hope. Yeah. There is hope. We as human beings can flip the script, if you want to say, from a technological perspective, but also from a ethical, how we act if we create certain conditions. And one of the main conditions is also introducing more into education in the very, very early years. Because we as human beings learn to survive by collaboration. We sometimes think we can be excellent if we do a little bit our own thing, but what is really the key for us is collaboration, and that requires a certain modeling, education, and trusting each other. So in this respect, I trust a lot to your words and your recommendations, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for participating in the panel. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.